Hi, everyone. We're so thrilled to be hosting our second community table conversation as part of Beyond Type 1's monthly series of conversations around topics facing the entire diabetes community. I'm Jordan, the Director of Programs at Beyond Type 1, and I will hand it off momentarily to a really incredible powerhouse group to talk about nutrition, health, and wellness in the diabetes community, in the Black diabetes community to be exact. But first, I want to thank those of you joining on Zoom and on Facebook Live, as well as those who make this incredible program possible. Community Table is presented by the JDRF-Beyond Type 1 Alliance and would not be possible without support from Abbott Diabetes Care, Dexcom, Lilly Diabetes, MannKind, Medtronic, Omnipod, Roche Diabetes Care, and Tandem. As you're following along tonight, if you have questions, we might be able to take some later in the discussion. So feel free to drop those into the chat or in the comments. I'll likely pop in to share some of those questions with this group. But for now, I'm going to ask our awesome panelists to come on video, and I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Tiara, who's going to be moderating this conversation tonight. Tiara, feel free to take it away.
Thanks, Jordan. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the community table. Of course, we're here on behalf of Beyond Type 1, and just like Jordan said, we'll be talking about nutrition, health, and wellness in the Black diabetes community. And so we're super excited to get started. And I am so lucky to be joined here by some amazing panelists. We have people with type 1, with type 2, as well as a fabulous certified diabetes care and education specialists. So I'm going to kick it off to them and let them introduce themselves. Keith, let's start with you.
You want to start with me? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Keith Creer from Houston, Texas. Sports photographer, media, multimedia specialist, the whole thing. I'm type 2 diabetic, diagnosed in 2017. I've been living with the disease since then. It's been a journey, but I'm also happy that I'm able to share my journey and my ups and downs with type 2 diabetes with everybody today.
Thanks, Keith. Alexis.
Hello, I'm Alexis. I have been living with type 1 diabetes since I was 18 months old. I just celebrated 37 years with type 1 diabetes. I also am a registered dietitian, a mama to a crazy tot. I'm a wife. So yeah, that's who I am.
Thanks for being here, Alexis. Dex?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dex. I live out here in Los Angeles, California. I am a personal trainer and CrossFit coach, and I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in 2016. So been living with that for a while and been blessed to be able to help people overcome struggles with diabetes and fitness and just general health overall.
And last but not least, Joy.
All right. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Joy Ashby-Cornthwaite, and I am a dietitian and a certified diabetes care and education specialist. I don't myself live with diabetes, but I love a lot of people who do and have, and I've grown up seeing diabetes, and I wanted to be the change. And so I became a diabetes care and education specialist so that I can help my family and also people living with diabetes whose families care about them too.
Excellent. And I'm personally excited about this topic because this is sort of my personal wheelhouse and professionally, but this is something that's always important to our community and the diabetes community. So let's get started with the first question. And this is an open question for anyone. What does wellness mean or look like for you, especially for those who are living with diabetes, and has your diagnosis changed the way that you live?
I guess I can start. For me, I think it is balance. I know a lot of times when I'm with people who don't typically know about diabetes, there's a lot of things surrounding food that they believe I cannot have at all. But I think once you find a balance, you're able to still eat some of the things that you were eating before your diagnosis, just not at maybe the same amount that you were eating before. So just finding balance with the way you eat, balance in the way you exercise, whether it's like myself who exercise maybe 2 hours a day, or just going out for a 15-minute brisk walk. Just finding balance in what comes with that. And then the last thing in balance is just your mental health and making sure you check in with yourself and your feelings and your emotions, and figure out what brings you happiness and joy.
Yeah, I have to agree with that with Dex. It is a balance. It's just knowing, like I said, what to eat, what not to eat, what to consume, when to consume it. Exercise is very, very important. So yeah, I agree with that. It is a balance. It is a balancing act at that too, on a daily basis.
Yeah, for me, what it looks like is making sure that I am well, not only with how I'm eating, like you guys mentioned, exercise, making sure I'm honest and checking in with my friends and family, my support system, and also the spiritual aspect of it too, making sure that, I am connected I'm a Christian, so making sure I'm connected in the sources that I feel encouraged in. And when one of those are kind of out of whack, like I just don't feel well, like if I'm eating well, I'm exercising, but I'm not really checking in with my friends, something is a little off. Or maybe I'm checking in with my friends, but I'm not really like praying or meditating, like something is off. So like making sure I'm checking in all these different aspects.
Yeah, and I love that the three of you have come to, to the table to say, these are things that are important to me. I think of health for myself on a continuum, and I encourage that in every day, in my family life, in my personal life, but also for those who I help to balance their journey with diabetes, because everyone has their own journey and they're a whole complete individual. And so, when someone comes to a session with me, I find out where you are today, where on the continuum are you on, and what can we work on today? And it has to come from you. It has to be what you want and not necessarily what I want. But it's going to be, I'm going to use my skills to get you to where you need to be.
I love all of your answers, and I agree with everything all of you have said. I think for me, wellness is about balance, not just exercising, but how do I feel inside, and how do things like food make me feel in my relationship with that. And with that said, I'm going to get into our next question: is your relationships with food? How would you define it, and where are you now with it? Let's talk about your food journeys.
Oh, I'll go first on that one. It's like a battle. It's Hulk and Banner. It's at first it was a real struggle. Like, like Dick said, it was like trying to figure out, okay, I can't eat this, but in reality you can. You just have to do it in smaller portions. And once I grasped that concept, the way I ate, where I consumed food, and how I consumed it, really changed my perspective on me having a more solid relationship with food. Um, so that relationship piece does take a toll on you mentally, because again, it is a constant battle daily to knowing what you consume. Did you consume so much of it that day? And then when you're doing your tracking, how can I go about it the next day? Because the next day may be totally different based on, the type of number you may have pulled early in the morning.
Yeah, I'll go next. For me, it's been interesting. Since I was diagnosed as a child, 18 months old, my parents really set an amazing foundation of like, I wasn't restricted of anything. The doctor that that they took me to, he was very liberal in his way of treating my blood sugars and treating my food intake. And so like, I never felt like I necessarily had this bad relationship with food. I think now my frustration or my irritants is like food I know I love, like I love white rice. And, but as my body has changed, my body doesn't really tolerate it as well as it did before. Like trying to figure out the amount of insulin for the same amount of rice I ate like 2 years ago is completely different now. So that's kind of where my like frustration is. And, taking that into consideration of like, hey, do I feel like fighting with my blood sugars today or not? Some days I don't feel like fighting with it, so I'm not going to have my rice, and I'll have something else that like I enjoy. But I really believe that all foods can fit. I believe that there is no good or bad foods. Like when I'm working with my clients, like we often have to unpack the food stigma and things like that. So.
Yeah, and let me chime in and say, of course, I agree with y'all. It feels so wonderful to hear another dietitian and other people saying that all things can fit, because, I don't look it, but I've been a dietitian for over almost 15 years now. And in the beginning, I was the only one, right? So my background is our family is from the Caribbean, and growing up and watching my parents be tortured by saying that their food culture wasn't appropriate for their personal health really drove me to become a dietitian, right? To understand the biochemistry and the pathophysiology of it, because there was no way that my mom was making food from her hands from the earth and giving it to us out of love with the intention to make us ill. And so knowing this about food helps me to get my patients, especially my Black patients, to understand that honor your culture, honor who you are, and let's work with that, figure out where you are today and see, do I want to go to battle to have this thing that I want today? Or do I want to, just do a smaller portion and keep it as a special day? I think that part, I would invite you guys to comment too on it, because I kind of want to hear your take on how your culture has influenced the way that you think about food.
Yeah, I mean, for me in my relationship with food, being an athlete, food for me is more about fueling my body. That compared with whatever my blood sugar is at the time is what I usually try to consume foods that are, if I'm high, obviously I'm gonna not have so many carbs. If I'm low, then I could add a little bit more carbs to my diet. As far as culture goes, when I'm back at home in Michigan, my mom's from Alabama, and when she cooks food, I don't care what my numbers are, I'm gonna enjoy that time with my family. I mean, I'm sure in many cultures it's the same, but I know in the Black community, when we get together with our family and we eat, I mean, that's how we show love, and I don't want to ever not be a part of that when I'm with my family.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I identify with that, Dex. If I am with friends or family and I know that we're about to eat some food that's culturally relevant to me, I'm not so much worried about the numbers. And I think this is where we get into how food and wellness intersect, because it is about how food can make you feel. In that moment, I feel good about the things that I'm eating, especially if I'm eating it with people I love. And for those of you who do share food on social media, or especially for our dietitians here, what inspired you to get into cooking or into your respective fields? And actually, let's start with Alexis on this one.
Okay, cool. So basically, the reason I became a dietitian was because I wanted to help other type 1 diabetics be healthy and be well. And I decided age 12, when my diabetes educator, we really connected. Whereas before that, like my educators were telling me things that I just didn't connect with. And I'm like, I want your job. So that's kind of where it started. And then this sounds horrible, but I didn't really care about the health aspects of being a dietitian. It was literally like a means to an end. And it really wasn't until my mid-20s that I made the connection of like, wait, I should care because I'm 20 some years old and I don't feel well. And that's where I made the connection of like, oh my goodness, food really does affect emotions. And at that time I was working at a residential eating disorder facility. And so I saw it not only through my experience, but also through the experiences of these women trying to overcome these eating disorders. So I come at nutrition more from the emotional side, and really love working with my clients, working through those fears and food rules. And again, I was very, not other dietitians at the time really agreed with me or really practiced nutrition in the way that I was practicing. And so I love, Joy, that we're in the same camp, and that we're kind of pressing this message of like, your culture matters. And if you like neglect your culture in terms of food, you're going to eventually not be well, because that is part of who you are if you're neglecting that part of you. And I've seen that a lot. So yeah, this is a great conversation.
For me, like, I share pictures of food. I share how I prep food, only because, growing up, being the big guy was a thing. Like, oh, he's big, he's husky, this and that. And, the culture kind of played into that here in the South, right? So then you equate that to the different types of food that is prepared on the plate, what we call soul food, right? So when I share food in relation to how I feel about it, I try to find alternatives that equate to quote unquote soul food. So, like, for instance, a couple of days ago, during our snowstorm here, I posted about making a pizza, but it was using ingredients that were a little bit more healthier, right? Because again, when you put that mental block up of saying, okay, well, I can't have this, you wind up binging on it and you overindulge in it. So with my specialist, when she told me, she was like, hey, look, you can eat it, but you have to minimize how much you consume, right? So you can't consume a whole bunch of it, but you can consume it. So when I understood that and I really took it for what it was, it made me think about what I was eating and how I was eating it. But then it was like, okay, well, fine. I built a different relationship with it, in the sense of, you know what? Sometimes it's a psychological thing. A lot of times it's a matter of just the taste. It's not so much that you want a pizza or want a burger. It's the fact that you have this taste for it. So you kind of learn how to maneuver around certain things to acquire that taste that doesn't break you from your new eating habits, that, or that'll take you back down to the roadway of spiking numbers and consuming a lot more carbs. So my relationship has been more or less trying to find things to replace what was once considered the norm for me, and what's considered the norm in the Black community.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Joy. Go ahead, please.
I just quickly, just to share why I share food. It started off with, just sending food pictures to my family. We love color. I love that we all have color on today. It's really kind of fun. And that we eat with our eyes. We eat, there's an emotional aspect. There's definitely a fueling aspect, like you said, Dex. And but I shared to let people know that it's okay. If there is something that you're wanting and there's something that speaks to you today, there are ways to have it. You can make some modifications here and there, add like veggies here and there, but always come back to you and then think about the context in which you're having it. You don't want to quietly slink away to eat something that quote unquote is healthy, right? But then you've lost the connection with the people that you're sharing that meal with, or you've chosen not to eat something even though you are going out for a workout and your body needs that fuel. I think I shared just to say it's okay.
100% Joy. And I think like there are so many misconceptions about food within our cultures, especially when it comes to soul food and what we can't have, and sort of how like that stereotyped, especially in connection to diabetes, right? I think as Black individuals, we hear a lot, well, you can't eat too much fried chicken or fried fish because you'll get diabetes. And it was like, it doesn't exactly work that way. But if you do have diabetes, I know I share because I want people to see that, yeah, I love fried fish, but I also love having it with like a side of like vegetables. or if I do like fried fish, I can make oven fried fish and have it taste really good and satisfying. So I know that's why I share. So I want to shift us away from food and into fitness, which is since we have a personal trainer here, I was hoping that he could share some of his fitness tips, especially like when it comes to barriers, Dex. Like, what type of barriers have you encountered when it comes to fitness, and what you usually see when you work with some of your clients?
Barriers. I know for me, growing up, at first, it was, especially in the neighborhood I lived in, access to facilities to work out and train and exercise wasn't really around where I lived. And at that time, there was no Planet Fitness, nowhere where you can get a $10 membership and work out there. So just access was a barrier for the most part. And information was a barrier as well. Like, we all know that we could run, but if you're exercising and you're not doing something you enjoy, it's going to be very hard to be consistent with that. And for me, luckily, around 10th grade, my mom was stable enough to only have one job and support us all. And I got a job at KFC, and I was able to pay for gym memberships then. So that was just one way I overcame barriers. I know now when I look around, and it's kind of changing a little bit. When I see or look around the gym, I don't see very many Black people. And I think that's just because, like I said before, access to it and information. I think I forget what they're called, dead zones, I guess, for the most part, when it comes to Black neighborhoods. You don't really see gyms or any health spots or anything like that. Even if you go to the grocery store, there's food there that Whole Foods has good, clean food. And then you go to a Black neighborhood or even like a Latino low income neighborhood, and you don't see those same nutritious foods there. So just access and information, I think, has been the biggest barriers I've seen people struggle with when it comes to just fitness in general.
Thanks, Dex. And how about the rest of you when it comes to trying to maintain a balanced exercise or physical activity regimen? What types of barriers have you experienced, and how have you overcome that?
I can speak up. I know for me is that what I really enjoy, I started off CrossFit about 8 years ago. And that was like my start into lifting heavy and going to sit down, which I loved. I then transitioned to doing more powerlifting. And then I was able to powerlift until I was pregnant. I think I was, 14 weeks pregnant, still lifting heavy. And then I had to sit down because I had some like unrelated complications, not related to diabetes or anything. So like since having her, my barrier is like the ability to get to the gym to lift heavy, just because of time. I'm working full time. I have my private practice. I have a kid. It's just been hard. And then the whole mental thing, it's like, I like to lift heavy, but I don't like running. I don't enjoy running. I don't enjoy HIIT workouts. Like, I hate jumping around. I feel like I look silly. So trying to find workouts that I enjoy. So then I found Girl Trek. I don't know if you guys have heard of Girl Trek. It's an amazing organization that encourages Black women to really take care of themselves through walking. So I joined them about 3 years ago. So I was walking before COVID in a group like 2 to 3 times a week. And we were getting it in. It wasn't just a stroll, like we were walking. And then I added in some yoga. I love yoga. So I was walking and doing yoga. And recently I just started working with Faith Fueled Moms. She is a dear friend of mine, but she's also a personal trainer. And I really enjoy her workouts. And so I've been working with her since, I want to say, I guess the second week of December. And I actually enjoy working out. We're doing like lighter works, resistant bands, things that I didn't think I'd actually enjoy. And it's actually difficult. Like in my mind, I'm like, in order for me to be fit, I have to lift heavy. But this is like, my muscles, I'm sore today. I didn't work out today because I'm sore from our workout yesterday. And then also mindset has been really helpful, like really viewing my body as like, this is something I need to invest in, not just with food, but also with how I'm like training my body. Like your body needs to be trained in order to keep up in terms of your longevity. So once I kind of had that mindset of like, all right, this is just as important as nutrition, it's been easier to get up at like 6 o'clock in the morning to work out because I like have a means to an end, you know, like this is going to help me be active and be here for my daughter and my husband and my friends and my family. So that whole mind change really, really helped me.
Joy.
I was seeing if Keith wanted to jump in.
Yeah.
So personally, for me, because I have such a very long genetic family history of diabetes, working out has been prevention. And so for me personally, and coming back from having kids, Alexis, is a big thing. So I grew up running. I ran a lot. I ran cross country, track, played soccer, probably until I even went back to the soccer field between my pregnancies. And so for me, that sort of like getting into a team activity is a really big thing for me. So I knew that I now practice in a large, well, it's kind of an extensive group, but we meet at the park. It's called Camp Gladiator here in Houston, and it's kind of all over the place. But my trainer is fantastic. She also was a runner all of her life and a track athlete her whole life. So what I try to do, and that I've been able to stick with, even though I'm limited on time. And so what I do a lot of times when I sit down, and Dex, you could tell me if this is wrong, but when I sit down with my patients, I ask them what they like to do. And then I remind them that you don't necessarily have to exercise, but you should perform some level of physical activity, which is movement of your body. And so sometimes we find that, you know, people want to take a water aerobics class, or they want to do yoga, like Alexa said, or they want to do weights. And their idea of working out was an exercise that they didn't like. Like we think of ourselves as glasses half full a lot of the time, but we don't really think that way. We think, oh, the doctor told me to exercise, it must be punishment. And then we think of the thing that we hate most in activity. And then we decide that we're not going to do it. And so I think that's part of the thing, you know, for us to find what we love and then use that for our movement. Dex, Keith.
No, that's 100%. I agree with that 100%. A lot of times, especially just on TV, you see the tough workouts. The workouts are going to make you really sweat. And I've known people to lose a ton of weight just going to Zumba classes. Things of very low impact, but they show up all the time and they're consistent. And because of that, because they enjoy that, they could have all these stressors throughout the day. But when it comes to that 1 hour working out, there's something they enjoy and able to keep going. So yeah, that's great. I'm glad that you do that and help them find their fitness journey through something they love.
Yeah, because like for me, my biggest barrier was getting out of my head because it became psychological because I was the fat guy, right? I was the fat kid, right? So it was, I don't want to go to the gym because I don't want anybody to see me working out in the gym, right? Because of that mentality of I'm gonna be made of because I'm here, I'm overweight. And then that embarrassment kind of set in, and then that depression set in for me. And it was like, all right, you have to find something. So when I talked to my specialist, she told me the same thing. Find something that you like to do. And with me now working on the sidelines at games and stuff, it was just walking for me. And it was like, you know what, let me go walk. Let me just spend 30 minutes, 45 minutes and go walk. And that has been my biggest accomplishment with losing my weight on top of eating right was just walking. And I think that a lot of people struggle with that type of barrier, especially those that were overweight or are overweight, and they get that diagnosis of being diabetic. And it's like, okay, do I want to go in this gym with me after the doctor told me I was overweight and go in there and see these fit people working out, hitting the you know the bells and the weights, and it's like, you know, so you got to get past that mental block at first. So for me, that was the biggest barrier. And then when you have trainers that understand, like, hey, look, I understand your frustration, or I understand that barrier, we're gonna take it slow. And then when they take it slow with you, then it's a greater progression for you to follow through with either the meal plan or the workout plan.
Hmm. Yeah, Keith, everything you said, like I completely identify with. I remember when I was started to go to the gym for the first time, I felt so self-conscious about going over to the weights, especially since I didn't have a trainer. Everything I was learning was, through YouTube. So I'm trying to make sure my form is right, but at the same time, I'm looking at other people who are clearly more fit than I am and know what they're doing, and then feeling like, oh man, they're gonna look at me and they're gonna laugh, and no one is gonna want to help, and then I might as well just give up and go home. And knowing myself and my emotional connection to food, I know for me that means I'm going through a drive-through. Um, this is a question that I want to throw at Dex first, and then I want to ask Joy and Alexis this. And this is about misconceptions pertaining specifically to Black people with diabetes and when it comes to fitness. Dex, what have you encountered? What are some of the ways that you've helped your Black clients move past those stigmas and misconceptions?
I think the biggest thing is just support. Um, in our community or just in the world in general. If you're overweight, you get looked down upon, and that can just add to depression and lead to worse things, like, again, like people finding comfort in food and things like that. So I think the biggest thing is first just giving them support, knowing that some things, or most things really, there's just learned behaviors that you have that you not even know or aware of, that may have got you to a certain point. I know a big term going on right now is unlearning, and just taking everything, looking at it through a different scope, and then figuring out what brought you to this point, and then what can I do to change this? And so yeah, just giving support, letting them know that fitness is going to be a journey. It's not just a one-stop shop kind of thing. It's going to take a while for you to start to see changes. For the most part, you have to create these better habits, and getting through that way. And I know it's tough to say. For the most part, I have a lot of confidence in myself, but just learning to love yourself. And when you learn to love yourself, you want to do the things that's right for you, and you're going to kind of just quiet that outside noise and put your blinders on and work for yourself, and not think about the negative things that you might be getting from someone else. My family has a history of diabetes and obesity. My oldest sister is, she's lost 150 pounds now, but still just over 400 pounds. And I just remember things people would say to her growing up. And now that I support her and my family supporting her, she's been on this incredible journey and losing weight, just because now she feels confident enough to do the things that once scared her or felt ashamed about. For me, I never knew that people went to the gym and was nervous to be there when they're looking at other people who are fit doing exercise. And I seen them, and in my eyes, I'm proud. You're here and you're doing it. I never knew that people had that self-doubt when they're at the gym. But being able to conversate and talk to my sister, or just Black clients in general, I've been able to learn what's going on and been able to apply that to them in their journey in fitness.
And
Yeah.
oh, go ahead, Alexis. Yep.
No, that's okay. We're just like,
I was going to actually call in and ask you if you had a follow-up.
yeah, I was gonna just say that some of the things that I've seen is that that they they believe that people think they're lazy, so like they don't want to push through that because they're afraid of what people are going to think, similar to what you were saying, Dex. I've also seen like the fear of like not knowing what to do kind of overtake them, like in my discussions with them, with my patients. Another idea kind of similar to what we were talking about earlier is that they have this perceived idea of what exercise looks like. So really breaking it down into bite-sized pieces of like, look, as long as you're like being consistent with the movement, whatever you choose to do, you can add on time, you can add on intensity, but as long as you're out there like trying to move. So those are the things that I have conversations with my patients about in terms of fitness.
And then for me, when it comes to fitness, I think that one of the great disservices that kind of the olden day nutrition therapy and sort of like guilt-ridden learnings and teachings have done for, especially for the Black community, is to tell people that they need to lose weight if they're moving. So for many people who are living with diabetes, it doesn't always equate, movement doesn't always equate to weight loss. And it also doesn't always equate to better blood glucose values. So if you're living with type 1 diabetes and you are going out there and you're hitting it hard, and you've got adrenaline on board, your muscles are releasing glucose. And so you could experience a very high blood glucose value. I mean, even if you're living with type 2, just because you're exercising so hard and you didn't medicate before, or you didn't have a snack, there's a lot of things that go into to thinking about exercise. And so if you are telling someone that they're not exercising and that's going to be harmful to them, but they're realizing and they're thinking in their mind, and I think you mentioned this, Alexis, when you talked about your relationship with the person that then led you to think, I want to be a dietitian. When you're telling someone that it's going to make them better to exercise, and they're seeing that their blood glucose is either crashing or going up way too high with exercise, there's a disconnect. You haven't heard what they're saying to you. And so you need to find out what people are experiencing in their exercise journey and then address those things and say, look, you may not lose weight, but let's check your blood glucose before and after and celebrate the win over either the hyperglycemia that you have been feeling or the hypoglycemia that you were feeling if you didn't pre-exercise meal, or for whatever reason, celebrate the win that is more than weight. And I did it.
Yes, that is so good. That is so good. Just because people can get so discouraged in the process if they don't know that potentially they could exercise and actually gain weight, or they could exercise and then have really high blood sugar. So that was part of my story. Like when I first started doing Olympic weightlifting, like I would come in with a blood sugar that was within range for me. And by the time the exercise was over, I was 350. And so my diabetes educator and it was very hard to control it and figure out like insulin needs and snacking and timing and but it's doable. It's just really hard work. Like if I would have known that beforehand, which I didn't know, I would have came in with a game plan to kind of plan ahead. So that is so true. And a similar, like I figured out with like the HIIT workouts, like my body can't tolerate them. Like I spike ridiculously, like I can't do that. And it's really hard to control. So that's such a great, important tip that you mentioned. And another thing too, this is kind of my soapbox that I tend to jump on in terms of being a dietitian and being Black, is that an ideal weight for someone who's African-American may not be similar to another culture or race. And I think that we need to keep that in mind as we are discussing food, nutrition, health, and weight, that the ideal weight that a doctor may have for you may not be appropriate. And I think that needs to be said and also needs to be addressed when we're talking to these patients about weight and health and glucose numbers and things like that.
And also like the number on the scale, it changes all of the time. And I think finding something other than what's on the scale as sort of your North Star on why you're exercising isn't making you feel good. Alexis, what you said is like those high intensity workouts, they don't work for you, but for Dex, it may work for you. And for Keith, you mentioned that you like to go walking. It really does depend on what makes you feel good inside. And I would say even for me, diabetes is part of the reason why I exercise, but it's not the complete reason why I exercise. Like I know that I can go for a jog and my blood sugar still may be higher than normal, but after that jog, I actually feel pretty great. And I'm more likely to make other good choices related to my health as the day goes on, and my blood sugar will kind of take care of itself. If I notice that something is still off, then I can always talk to a doctor about medication strategies, sort of Alexis, what you alluded to just now. But still, like, if you are someone who is watching this and you're like, well, I still want some motivation on weight loss. It's really important to me. You know, we do have someone on this panel who is celebrating a milestone, and I'll let him talk about it. Keith, why don't you celebrate yourself and your latest health win?
Yeah, I mean, I joke about it a lot on Instagram and Facebook because and one of the reasons I joke about it so much is because, it's a serious thing, but, I don't like to make it so serious where people get discouraged about it. So I was at 425 pounds, right? When I first started my journey. Now I'm at 298. And the difference that I see within myself, and people ask me all the time, like, well, you're diabetic, so how do you find the positive in it? And I'm like, well, I got to see a smaller version of myself that I never would have thought I would ever see. Because again, like I said before, it's like in the Black community, you're like, all right, you kind of take hold to being the big guy, the husky guy, right? And you kind of take on these monikers that kind of mask what you're really going through with your weight. So yeah, it's one of those things I've been really, really documenting on Instagram and Facebook, because I didn't know I had so many people that actually followed me, that not even friends, just regular people. They're like, hey, I have diabetes too. Like, how did you do this? How did you do that? And I'm like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I can show you my tips. But they're like, you look so great. Like, how did you lose the weight? And I'm like, and they, the number, I'm sorry, I get so excited about this. But one of the number one things people ask me is like, did you get the surgery? And I'm like, no, I didn't. Nothing wrong with the surgery. But what you see is literally 6 to 7 years of determination and working out. So it's been a slow process for me. So a lot of people are like, oh, okay, because we live in a society, the microwave society, where we want it instantly right then and there, and people don't understand the work that actually goes in behind it. Now, I'm not saying I'm no gym buff or anything, but I do take the time to make sure that I implement some type of blood pumping regimen in my daily routine. So, for me, like I said, it's walking, whether it's for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, I do it every day. I do it before I get to work, I do it on my lunch break, and I do it before I go home. And then I walk again when I get back home. So it's just finding that balance. So yeah, I get so excited about my weight loss because again, it's just one of those things where people are like, oh, you look good. I'm like, yeah, I know, right? It's, so you gotta stroke yourself a little bit, right? But it does feel good. But I just want people to see that it is a process. It's not something that can be done overnight, especially when you're dealing with diabetes or type 2 diabetes in the community.
Keith, thank you for sharing that, and definitely thank you for letting everyone know that it is a process. Like everyone is seeing, like you said, the result of just years of work. And it's not always easy to stay on that journey, but it is important to kind of keep the end goal in mind, I would say. And there's another part to wellness that I'm going to throw at all of you, and that is about setting boundaries and maintaining your own peace and prioritizing your mental health. So I think I'm going to start with Dex. I think I'm going to start with you on how you set boundaries, maintain your own inner peace, and as well as your mental well-being.
Boundaries. I don't know if I really have boundaries. I do take time. I go on walks at least 3 or 4 times a day. Not a day, a week. And I usually listen to audiobooks, or sometimes I just take in the noise around me. And that's when I take the time to check in with myself, see how I'm doing that day. Those things are important to me. I'm kind of I am an introvert, so I do like my alone time. I like to paint. That brings me joy. DJing brings me joy. Just reading books. A lot of things that probably looking at me, people don't think I enjoy, but yeah, those things, the times alone now, I really, really enjoy. I'm stuck at my gym can sometimes be 10 or 12 hours a day. So I don't always get the time to be by myself, but when I am there, I take that time to go on that walk and just make sure my mentals are all right. Currently going through family situation that's on my mind quite a bit. As of this week, I sought out a therapist, and I have my first therapy appointment next Wednesday, which I'm really excited to get going on. And I can always do a lot for myself, but I think it is better to be with a professional who can help me with this journey to get just mentally right. I think I figured out the physical part, but the mental part is not that I've been depressed all my life, but just this year with COVID and then getting the news about my mom has definitely changed the way I see things. And I'm always just open to conversation. So there's really no boundaries there, but I just know that I need to have time for myself and check in with myself.
Dex, thank you so much for sharing that. And I hope, your family situation works out for the best. But also thank you for being open about going to therapy, which is definitely a stigmatized subject within our different Black communities. And I think as a Black man as yourself, to be open about that, I think it says so much and can make such a big impact for anyone who's watching this and is considering doing the same. So thank you so much for sharing that. Alexis.
Yeah, so I do set boundaries around my mental health. Right now I'm going to acupuncture weekly. I love it. And I get a peace. It really relaxes me. And that it's really been helpful. I also have a therapist that I've been seeing off and on for a couple years, and that is like my time. With a kid, it's hard to really set boundaries because you have that whole mom guilt of like, I want to be with her, but you're getting on my nerves right now. I need some time. So I've been really trying to like carve out some time for myself to do things I enjoy. I am a new plant mama. I have like 10 or 11 plants. I just killed one today, I think. Hopefully I gotta check on it later. Anyway, so I love doing plants. I'm into like essential oils. So I have tons of essential oils and tea. I love tea. So I've been trying to learn about herbs, and I make my own little tinctures. So those are the things that kind of bring me joy. It also naturally relaxes me. And I found that really has helped with my mental health. I do struggle with anxiety from time to time. And I find when I'm able to eat well, exercise, play with my plants, take my tinctures and everything, it seems to kind of like balance everything out.
Keith?
Well, mine is kind of twofold, right? I'm a new dad, so really what I focus on to kind of keep me level is my son, because I was told I could never have kids, right? Because of my diabetes. So just, even though I'm still learning the dad thing at 42, um, it's also been kind of the thing that keeps me going. It kind of keeps me level and not think about all the nonsense I may have dealt with at the job or stuff that you see on TV and the news. I just look at him and, like, me and the wife prayed for him and we finally got him. So he's kind of like that. He's just like that leveling field for me. He's like that when you walk into, it's probably the wrong thing to say, but it's like when you walk into an ice creamy place and you're like, get that sense of, where do I go? What do I choose? Right? Because now you come and now the endorphins in your head are going off. So it's the same thing for me. He is kind of like that place of peace for me to keep me mentally balanced. And that's where I kind of lay my boundaries at when it comes to being at peace with everything, with diabetes and society and everything else.
Thanks, Keith. And Joy, what brings you joy?
So exercise brings me an immense amount of joy. So it has always been my happy place. I told you I played soccer for almost like 28 years or something like that. And my friends, I'm an extrovert. And so soccer let me be that extroverted person. I could get I'm a Sagittarius, so I'm like wild and crazy, and then I'm calm. So I've really loved taking time to exercise. And, my trainer has gone online virtually, and there were some times in there, because this has been a tough year for everybody, that I couldn't exercise. And that brings me a whole lot of stress because there's nowhere to release it, right? And my patients, I work in a high-risk pregnancy clinic with mommies living with diabetes type 1. A lot of my moms are on insulin pumps, and they need supplies and they need resources, and people have lost their jobs, and all of these things that I'm trying to help someone live their best life. And I almost feel a lot of times like I don't have control over what insurance says has to be covered. And I need to do a PA, and I need to figure out a way to get them their resources and get them their things. And so I kind of put myself on the back burner in order to do that. But as I kind of noticed that it was getting to that space where it's uncomfortable and it's very dangerous for my family, for my own mental health, I've leaned on my friends. So like with you, Tiara, I do a lot of outreach. And so I've leaned on my friends at the Houston Food Bank and the different pantries across the city to help my patients who can't get food. I've leaned on durable medical equipment companies that are like small mom and pops, and said, hey, can you figure out a way how to get this patient her pump supplies? I really need your help. I've called in to all the people that I've helped before so that they can help me help my people, my diabetes people and my diabetes family, so that I can remain calm and hear from my own family. So I would say, reach out and ask others to help you. If you're a person living with diabetes, if you're a person caring for people living with diabetes, we're not siloed, and we can't do it by ourselves because it's not good for up here.
Absolutely. I think a lot of us would probably be a lot worse off if we had to deal with everything that we're dealing with diabetes or caring for someone with diabetes. But we have each other, especially like as our group here. So we have one last question before we get to a couple of audience questions, which is, how can we celebrate our culture or different types of Black cultures throughout the year, not just during Black History Month? And Joy, I think I'll start with you on this question.
I say support each other, right? So now I know the three of you. I didn't know you just a few days ago, but I know you now, and I see your journey. I'm inspired by you. and what you do, how you do it, and how you care for people. And so I say we raise one another's voices, because we're not alone. And I know for years I felt like I was the sole person saying, Black people aren't making ourselves sick with diabetes. It's not, we need help, we need medications, we need diabetes self-care and management. We need to know how to take care of ourselves. And we don't have to do that alone. And so, I'm coming after all of your accounts to post, repost, say hello, tell you that I'm here, be here if you need to call me. Whatever we need to do, we need to support each other and do it together, and then we're louder.
Dex.
Yeah, I've kind of always had a problem with, I love history as well, and only learning about my history for 1 month, the shortest month of the year. I think we just, I have this really good friend, his name's Jabri, who is now an assistant principal at his school, but he just shares Black history every day. And not even just, I know Black history a lot of times starts off with slavery, but even before that, Black history, where you see us as kings and queens, and then just the achievements that Black people did. So I think just our culture is so vast and rich, and like I think it needs to be shared every day in whatever way possible, whether it's through social media or just through conversation, or the way you dress, the way you wear your hair. It just needs to be expressed and be out there for people to see and enjoy and learn. Yeah, I mean, just sharing the culture as often and as possible, is as often and as, I don't know what I'm saying, but I think you guys get it. Yeah, I mean, I love our culture so much.
We got you. Yeah. And Alexis, and then Keith.
I say buy Black, like there's so many amazing Black companies. And so that's what I've been focusing on, and then amplifying those businesses on social media and telling my friends, like, I'm in a friend group and we're talking about face care, and I'm like, all right, I'm using this and they're using this Black company, and we're just like sharing information of these amazing Black companies that are out there. And if we can't do that, then no one else is going to, and it's really important to invest in Black businesses because they're everywhere.
Yes, please support Black business that you see, especially in the diabetes community. There's so many Black people in the diabetes community who have businesses and organizations, and who could use the amplifying on your social platforms. Like, that social sharing can do a whole lot, because you never know who could see their product. So please amplify. And Keith.
Just to amplify what everybody's saying, yes, constant delivery of, content from Black creators, just constantly delivering things from Black history that it can be done every day. Like Dex said, where your hair, the clothes, just something that constantly keeps it in the public eye, so it's not condensed down to just 1 month. And there are a lot of people out there that do it. And it's always great to see that. So I think if more of us continue to do that, it'll shift the narrative, and it'll shift the visual aspect of how we're seen in society as a whole.
Awesome. Thank you all. And we do have a couple of questions, and I'll start with the first one. So one person asked, what do you tell your clients? And I'm assuming this is for Joy and Alexis. What do you tell your clients about not letting their numbers define them as a person? And then I can actually expand that question to Dex and Keith as well.
So I guess I begin with trying to understand the number, right? So what happened around that number, or not necessarily that number that is not a good number, but a number that you were happy with, you know, like what was going on this day that your numbers were achieved where you wanted them to be. And then continue to do those behaviors around there. And then by default, they push out the numbers that you don't want to see. So, and that could be with a low blood glucose values. It can be with high blood glucose values. And so we kind of investigate. I encourage people to be diabetes detectives and figure out what was going on around that number. Could it have been a medication? Could it have been, because a lot of times it could be sleep, or it could be, stressors. There could be other things that are making that number what it is. And so that takes away the guilt and the burden, because sometimes it's the pathophysiology of the disease. And sometimes it's your behavior, right? But own whichever one it is by finding out what it is. So we don't really focus on numbers as like a definition or a grade of a person, but as a conduit or a method to getting where you actually want to be.
Love that. Alexis?
Yes, I love that. Yeah, so I come at it from the idea of it's just information. It's a number. It's not a value of who you are as a person or what you've done. It's literally a number, you know? And kind of like what Joy is saying, that then we investigate, like, all right, what happened today? How did you sleep? How did you eat? What was your stress like? What was going on? And rather than saying like, what did you do wrong? What did you eat at this time for this number? It's like, I don't know. I don't know what I ate. Like a lot of my patients, they don't know. So, but they can tell you what happened during the day. And I know as a patient with my CDE, like she's able, like she looked at my numbers and she could tell me what days I worked versus what days I didn't based on my numbers. It's like, she didn't come at me of like, oh, what did you have for dinner at this day? It was like, oh my goodness, like every day around 3 or 4 o'clock, your blood sugar is spiking. What's happening? I'm like, yeah, my daughter gets up from naps. Like that's what's happening. And so we're able to kind of troubleshoot, change medication. And it was really helpful for her to do that for me. And I hope to do that for my patients also.
Yeah. Can I just say something with response to that? So Alexis, one of the crazy things that goes on in sessions sometimes is my patients are like, wait, what? How do you know this about me? Because you can see when you see trends, you can see trends that follow one another. And so I see it, and I see kind of like a big picture when I compare days to other days. And then without even looking at the dates on there, I can tell which day, like someone slept longer or shorter, and I can tell them, and they're like, whoa, are you doing one of those weird Caribbean clairvoyant things? And I'm like, no, the numbers speak to you in different ways as data, not as, as something that you've done. So I love that you said that.
Exactly. That's why even though I'm a like type 1 diabetic and a dietitian, and I know how to count carbs and stuff, I have my own dietitian because I can't zoom out. Like it's impossible for me to zoom out and look at my own numbers in that way. So I am so glad she is there and she's able to do that for me. So that's great. I love it.
Thanks. And we have another question. I think this is our last one, and this is about cooking. So an audience member asked, I'm curious how our cooking has changed during COVID and how you found ways to stay connected this year through food. So has your cooking changed during COVID? And I'll let anyone start.
Yes. Not gonna lie, it's been tough because everybody went through the whole hoarding phase, like let me go buy this and that, right? And so you kind of left with, okay, we can't get out of the house, so I have to get things that's kind of quick and easy to cook, which is necessarily not the right things to consume. But yes, it has changed during COVID, but it's a matter of acknowledging it and realizing that you are consuming some things, and then you know that some of the things are not correct to be eating per se, but you understand it and you know it, so you're not over binging on it later on, and you look up and then you got the COVID-15 going on in your house because you gained 15 pounds during COVID-19, right? But yeah. I mean, for me, I had to get back on track, especially with the snowstorm that hit us here in Houston. And me and the wife had to make some real hard decisions about what we had to buy. Cause like, look, we don't want to, gain another 15 pounds here. So if we go to the store, we're going to buy stuff that's easy to cook, but it's nutritionist as well. It's not processed. So it's just a matter of having that knowledge and knowing and understanding, like, yeah, I got to get a handle on this. And I got to make sure that I don't fall off the wagon per se during these certain unprecedented times, if you will.
Do you want me to go?
Yeah.
So it hasn't really changed that much for me. I always loved cooking, and I love when my food looks pretty. So now I just post it a little bit more for friends and family, and I do it a little bit more intentionally. But I do recognize that for a lot of people, they've experienced exactly what Keith has experienced. So like I grew up being the sous chef for my mom, like chopping up vegetables and chopping up things and all of this. And so that is very much in my wheelhouse. And so we've kind of worked a lot with my patients on like finding quick, easy ways to get into cooking. And even for like some of my family, since I can't be with them because they're in different states, we might, FaceTime or something like that, and then cook together instead of being able to cook together at home. So.
Dex or Alexis?
For me, it's changed quite a bit. I am making significantly more money than I've ever have since moving to LA. And that allows me to order out a little bit more than I was before. I still make breakfast a priority. I do cook breakfast for the most part, but now I've been eating the same chicken and Brussels sprouts from the same place the last 4 days. Before COVID, I was cooking all the time, kind of on a budget. So I know it's a lot cheaper to make my food and prepare it, and I know what's going in it. Kind of like the last question though, I've been able to order food because I have the Freestyle Libre. I've been able to notice trends in what I eat, and I know these foods are gonna keep me in the range that I want to be for the day. So I just order the same thing. I'm not picky with my food. And again, I just kind of think about it as fuel for the most part. So yeah, Postmates probably love me, making them a lot of money right now, lots of money.
Yeah, I feel like I've been cooking more often. So pre-COVID, I would cook in bulk because I wasn't home a lot. So I would eat typically what I had for dinner. I would eat that for dinner for like 4 days or so. But I find myself now that I'm home at my lunchtime, like I will actually make food. So I'm cooking a lot more throughout the week than I have ever since I'm home.
Yeah, and I would say for me, it is, I've gone through like little phases. So at the beginning of the pandemic, I was great at cooking all the time and having a lot of fun as usual. And then I went through a moment where, how Dex has Postmates, I have DoorDash and DashPass. So people were seeing my name come up a lot. And then I think from like an order out perspective, there's only one soul food restaurant in my area, and it ended up unfortunately kind of burning down during COVID. So my excuse of like supporting a small Black business kind of went out the window when, yes, I wanted to do that, but also I really wanted some like catfish and mac and cheese and stuff. So I've had to kind of learn how to do that again at home, but now I'm back at a point where I am cooking pretty much all the time again, and I'm at Trader Joe's like every day because I'm just buying like all of the fresh produce and whatnot. So that brings us to the end of our chat. And I had a great time hearing all of you share your experiences. But before we say goodbye to our audience, does anyone have anything else to add? Any like take home tips for the audience?
Yeah, I actually do. For anybody that's a type 2 diabetic, or newly diagnosed diabetic, for what was told to me, take it one day at a time. I know it can be overwhelming and it can be a clouded moment in your head is trying to figure out what the next move is going to be, but just take it one day at a time, one meal at a time. And you will see over time that the progression, as far as you getting a handle on your diabetes, will be much greater.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was about to say the same thing. I was going to say that this is a journey, right? So there's twists and turns and ups and downs. And I think as long as we continue on the journey, things are going to flesh themselves out. Give yourself grace, meaning that don't beat yourself up over things. It's really, you have an option to try again at your next meal, at the next day, and really just be kind to yourself. Yeah, that's my message.
It's not really a message. What kind of is, Keith? Your journey is beautiful and an inspiration, and I'm very grateful to being able to hold space with you today and meet you today. Just thank you for sharing, and for everyone too. I'm just really happy to hold space with everyone and be a part of this conversation.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, man.
Yeah, and I think just to take off of all of the things that you all have said in these last moments, I think it's really important to find your village. Even as a healthcare provider, I've always looked for the people who want to help like I want to help. I sought out an institution that has supportive care for Black people living with diabetes, that has a social worker, has a case manager who understands people in the neighborhoods that we provide care with, because I know that we have to do it all together, because people don't live in the clinic. They live at home with their kids. You can bring your kids, your husband, your wife, everybody to a diabetes care and education session, because I want to help them share too. I want to hear their voices. And you cannot understand the feeling of gratitude and also the feeling of empowerment for me as an educator when my patient says to me, I'm trying not to get emotional at the end of the show here, but when they say to me, nobody listened to me before, but thank you for listening to me. Thank you for advocating for me. Don't forget the power of other people and other people of color.
That was beautiful. Oh my gosh. That was all of you. Thank you. Joy, Alexis, Keith, Dex, thank you so much for just taking the time to chat and share your experiences. This is an amazing community, and everyone who's watching this, please look in the comments in a bit for all of their social handles, because you definitely want to get connected with all of these amazing advocates. And I'm going to kick it over to Jordan, who will take us out of here. But thank you to the audience for watching. And again, thank you to our wonderful panelists for spending time with us today. This was a great conversation.
Thanks so much, Tiara. Thank you for moderating. And yeah, echoing Tiara, thank you to this group. It's really not easy to be this vulnerable, but it's incredibly helpful for so many of us. For all of you watching tonight, we have 10 more of these talks coming at you this year from Beyond Type 1. So we hope you'll join us next month when we chat about women's health and living empowered with diabetes. You can register for that conversation now, and we hope you'll tune in. Otherwise, just stay up to date, stay tuned into our channels, be on the lookout for new content from Beyond Type 1, highlighting takeaways from this conversation in particular, and this inspiring, amazing group of individuals cannot thank you guys enough again. Once again, we also want to take the time to thank those who make this all possible, who make Community Table possible. Community Table is presented by the JDRF-Beyond Type 1 Alliance and made possible with support from Abbott Diabetes Care, Dexcom, Lilly Diabetes, MannKind, Medtronic, Omnipod, Roche Diabetes Care, and Tandem. We hope to see you all again soon. Thank you again to this group. Thank you for everyone who watched, and have a good night. Bye, everyone.